That's not a lot of places in the world. Problem. It's a way of life and a right. They might just look at you blankly because they might not understand what you're saying, talking about. Jack Webb could have been calm and on television, he seemed calm, but off camera, he was a man who always told the truth about how he felt, feelings. He worked with a lot of people over the years, people who act, but some were able to get him to the end. These weren't simply little fights or arguments. They were fights of ego, pride, and pure anger. Webb didn't just not like these folks. He really loathed them. And his rage left a mark that lasted long after the camera stopped rolling. In this video, we're finding out who the 5 actors are, Jack. The thing Webb hated the most. The ones who put him to the test, pushed him to his limits. Power, which made him angry for a long time. John Randolph Jack Webb was born on Santa Monica, California on April 2nd, 1920. California. But his story started with heartbreak. His dad left the family before he was even born. Jack's mother and grandmother will raise him. Granny in the harsh Los Angeles neighborhood of Bunker Hill, in the Los Angeles area. Life there was not simple at all. Poverty, not knowing what to do and feeling restless. Longing molded his early years. But in the city's noise and Jack found it hard to deal with the hardships of everyday life. Calm comfort in being creative. He became very involved in Belmont High School. Took part in the radio club, where he first learned how powerful speech is and noise. He also had a lot of talent as an artist, adding funny cartoons for the school yearbook and getting praise for his talent. His students thought he was both a leader and a follower, and a person who dreams. He was even chosen president of the student body, remembered for his kindness and honesty. Jack went on to study art when he graduated, attend St. John's University in Minnesota, intending to turn his passion for sketching as a job. But the world altered quickly. When World War II started, Webb enlisted in the U.S. Army. Error was determined to serve his country. He wanted to be a pilot, but fate had other things to do. His dreams of flying were cut short when he failed to fly. Training, he worked as a clerk instead, and typist, and later getting a hardship. Discharged to help his mother and grandma. Jack still found his way, even in uniform. Voice again. Playing in USO shows and finding out how to be on stage that might one day make him a Hollywood legend. After he was let go from Jack Webb went back to Army Error. Civilian life in San Francisco, where fate gave him a break he didn't expect. There weren't enough radio broadcasters during the conflict. Opened the way to his own show on KJO Radio on ABC. The Jack Webb Show was a fun show. A short-lived comedy show aired in 1946. But Webb's acute senses soon led him away from funny things and toward the more serious crime and drama in the world. He had already demonstrated how adaptable he is with 1 Out of 7 is a solo radio show where he did every part himself, utilizing narrative to fight bias and show the truths that society hides. In 1949, Webb's voice had become a part of dark radio. He drew large crowds as the tough-talking detective from Pat Novak for Rental, a presentation full of smoky atmosphere and snappy banter. Johnny Motto was followed by other shows. Investigator Jeff Reen at Pier 23 and Pete Kelly's Blues, which made him even better at his job. Knowledge of the style. Hollywood quickly took note. Webb was in a number of movies, such as Sunset Boulevard and Dark City before taking on the role that would define him on screen as the strict drill instructor in The DI. The movie didn't do well at the box office. Webb's cold severity left an imprint that would change the stoic image that came to be in the future. His name. Jack Webb says the actors he loathed the most. The first thing is Richard Boone. Richard Boone was already a well-known star before he ever crossed paths with Jack Webb. When he got the Heck Ramsey 1972 to 1974, he was more than just an actor. He was the personality that drove the show. But heck, Ramsey's show wasn't really his. Belonged to Jack Webb behind the scenes, who Mark co-produced it through his company, 7 Limited. Things went well at first. Boone liked the Western meets detective story tone of the series, but that changed when Webb started to take more charge, revising scripts, letting authors go, and taking away directors Boone trusted. Boone was quite angry He said that the heart of the show, the authors, were being pushed out so Webb could take over his way. People said that Boone confronted Webb more than once, asking for creative honor. But Jack Webb wasn't a person who made deals. He thought that everything should be in order, discipline like in the military, and loyalty to his way of doing things. Boone was really vocal, angry, and didn't like being told what to do. The two men just didn't belong in the same space. Some people think Boone said he would leave the show. Some people say Webb said behind his back that he was unmanageable. We do know that by the last season, Heck Ramsey succumbed under power struggles. The show did not die because of the conflict, not the ratings. Behind the cameras, if you call it hate or being stubborn, there is one thing that is certain. Richard Boone was one of the few who had the guts to stand up to. He and Jack Webb had to pay. Number, William Conrad, number 2. Before Jack Webb ever been on TV as Joe, on Friday, Dragnet started on the radio, and the voice that people heard with Webb wasn't Harry Morgan or anybody else after partner. It was William Conrad. Conrad had a strong presence on the radio, a powerful voice, good timing, and a natural, dramatic impulse. He helped make Dragnet was a big hit in the US. Of course, when Conrad announced the TV version, thought he would move with it to the screen. He didn't. Jack Webb made himself hired someone else to play the star and second lead. Conrad was shocked. People in the industry said he was never even thought about seriously. Why? Some people think Webb thought Conrad didn't look like a cop. Too heavy too. Not good for TV, but tough. Some people think Webb wanted to be in charge of everything. Webb became not merely the lead and the only face of the franchise. Conrad's friends said he felt betrayed. He helped construct Dragnet, but then it was shut down, out of its biggest win. In the meantime, Webb didn't talk about him much. Again, was this hate? Not sure. But it was chilly. It was a personal thing, and it changed the way people thought about Jack Webb for all time. Smart, definitely, but ready to let folks go when they don't fit anymore. His picture. Harry Morgan is number 3. Harry Morgan and Jack Webb made one among TV's most famous, working together. They started doing this in 1967, turned into Joe Friday and Bill Gannon, the unbreakable detective team of Dragnet. They had an easy chemistry. People who watch loved them. But underneath that calm, there was a hushed tension outside. Harry Morgan looked up to Webb. He often talked about Webb was smart, well-behaved, and very loyal to police officers. But Morgan also said that Webb was working. Style was different from anything he had seen before. Experienced. Webb didn't practice. He didn't let. Improvisation. He made sure that actors read their lines exactly as it says. No feelings, no. A chilly, flat dramatic flourish. Delivery, just the facts. Morgan came from a more traditional background in acting. He loves to go on adventures, bringing flair to scenes and making reality and feelings. There wasn't room for it with Webb. Every break, every word, every answer was in charge. Some people on stage said Webb would get annoyed if Morgan asked for a second take. Some people remember days when Webb wouldn't stop filming even if the actors committed mistakes because they were real. Was more important than being perfect. Still, Harry Morgan never blew up, never went away. He thought too highly of Webb. But time, he softly murmured in it. Jack was a good man, the interview said. But you had to do things his way. Fully. His way. That statement explains it all. Number 4, Senator Robert A. If Jack Webb was Robert A. was the face and voice of Dragnet. Senator was his closest partner in the background. They made Adam 12 and Emergency, 2 very successful shows. They changed the way police and plays about medicine. But even close, partnerships feel the strain when they have too much to do. Control. Senator made sense, business-minded and really cared about. Just like the Webb, accuracy is important. But he also believed in telling stories and being emotive. Depth and letting characters change and grow. Webb didn't always agree. He liked structure over feeling, process over character. Their biggest fight was during the growth of an emergency. Senator saw bigger emotional arcs for the paramedics, scenes that showed dread, tiredness, and personal problems. Webb said no to this. He said that actual emergency workers didn't cry or lose control, so they shouldn't either. Characters. Crew members said they were heated. Meetings for scripts. Cinedare is requesting stories with characters that span the web, off whole pages and saying realism first. Drama second, they kept going. During years working together, the collaboration was no longer fair. Webb had the last word. Cinedare changed, although he never entirely agreed. It wasn't a lot of loud hate. It was two strong creative brains tugging in different ways. One toward people, one toward pure fact. Number 5, the directors and authors. Jack Webb didn't simply fight with stars or makers. He had some of his worst fights with the authors and directors who sought to get Dragnet and his other brings to life. William C. Stroh, one of the first people to direct Dragnet, said it was impossible to work under Webb. He said Webb would call him in the middle of the night, ask for adjustments, and make them go back to the studio, but for Webb to alter his mind a few hours later. Stroh thought Webb was smart but lonely, someone who looked like they needed to be in charge to feel safe. Writers had to deal with an even worse reality. Webb was known for firing people without caution, especially if scripts were late, upset, or not following genuine police rules. One writer joked, "You don't work for Jack Webb, you live through him." He said no to improvisation. He took out the humor. He eliminated scenes that made the characters too real. People who act couldn't interpret. They could only give. Some people fled on their own. Others were forced out. Some people never worked with Webb again, and they made sure that everyone in Hollywood knew why. The way Jack Webb got to immortality began with the little but important part in the criminal thriller from 1948. He walked at night. Playing a crime lab with great care, Webb found inspiration in becoming a technician. The film's harsh realism and technical exactness, the experience together with help from LAPD Sergeant Marty Wynn and Chief William H. Parker started a concept that would revolutionize policing forever. Drama, Dragnet, when Dragnet first aired on the radio in 1949 and then again on TV in 1952, it gave Americans something new, fun, realness. Webb, who played the stoic sergeant, Joe Friday, insisted on depicting law, not as caricatures of police officers or dishonest people, but as people who work hard, not paid enough and not often appreciated. Government workers. The now famous narrative. The story you are about to. It is true. The names have been modified to keep the innocent Webb's fascination with detail. From the sound of footsteps booming through the police station to the actual words in LAPD reports gave. Dragnet is a documentary-like show that audiences had never seen before. The series lasted for almost 10 years and became a key event in TV past. Even though Dragnet was the most important part of his career, Webb looked onto other creative interests. He made his love of jazz reel in. The Blues of Pete Kelly, 1955, playing a cornet player who is stuck between criminality and music, even though the movie never didn't do well in business, but it did show Webb's artistic spirit, a man who is also dedicated to sound and stories. By the beginning of the 1960s, Webb moved behind the camera, making and telling the story of the anthology series GOTs. Even though there were problems later on, his impact on making TV shows on American pop culture stayed strong. Webb's work changed the criminal genre, not by violence or glamour, but by being calm and respectful to the truth and those who gave their lives to, looking for it. After saying goodbye to Warner Brothers in the 1960s, Jack Webb brought back the passion that had. Storytelling was a big part of his early career, based on honesty and respect for the men and the ladies who wear the insignia. By 1966, he started to work on a revival of his Dragnet, his most famous work, with Harry Morgan as Officer Morgan. Bill Gannon Webb brought Sergeant Joe. In 1967, Friday came back on TV, determined to close the gap between the Los Angeles in the past and the quickly changing one of the late 1960s. The show changed its name every season, Dragnet. 1967, Dragnet 1968, etc. dealt with real-world problems like drug, addiction, crime, and revolt by young people. Avoidance. Though occasionally accidentally out of date, it stayed true to its mission, depicting the police as solid, moral, and human. Adam 12 kept doing well on the web in 1968, co-created with a senator from RA with Martin Milner and Kent McCord in the lead roles. The show followed two LAPD patrol, cops driving around Los Angeles. With its mix of action and realness, Adam 12 became another hit show that lasted 7 seasons and giving a generations knowledge about how cops work. In the same year, Webb's sense of timing for comedy, displayed in his famous Copper Clapper, Johnny Carson's caper sketch. At this, the stoic star erupted into a rare moment of laughter, which showed the warmth underneath his well-known deadpan look. In 1972, Webb and the senator started another long-running show, Emergency, which starred Julie London, his ex-wife, and Bobby Troop, her spouse. The show showed the life-saving work of paramedics and hospital staff, bringing national awareness of emergency medical services and making a difference in the real world. Going on until 1977, Emergency was Webb's last big hit, Glory, a drama show that mixed realism and a goal. Even though his later works, including Heck, Ramsey, and Project UFO, found some audiences, the Webb's creative spark never faded. Behind Jack Webb's stern face, persona beat the heart of a guy who loved music a lot more than celebrity. Away. He was from the world of police dramas, a jazz lover with a lot of passion, collection that was said to be bigger than 6,000 records. Jazz wasn't only a hobby, it was his place of safety, his routine, his manner of getting away, the strict world of scripts and sirens. He was so dedicated to the art that he recorded a few pieces on his own, like a memorable version of Try a Little, tenderness delivered in his signature deadpan style that eventually became popular after. It was in this world of smoky bars and smooth songs that Jack met the singer and Julie London, an actress. The two married in 1947 and had daughters before Stacy and Lisa got married. Finished in 1954, Julie stayed strong even though it broke her heart, one of the things he loved most in life. Jack married 3 more times after that to actress Dorothy Towne, who was also a beauty queen, Jackie Loggery, and then Opal Wright, his faithful friend until he died. Webb's daughter, years after his death, Stacy helped keep her father's legacy alive by letting his biography be written. Just the facts, ma'am. Sadly, she never got to see it come out. She was killed in a car crash only 3 years before the book came out. In a lot of ways, her loss was like the silent sadness that typically stayed under the surface of Jack Webb's amazing existence. On December 23rd, when it was peaceful, 1982, Hollywood lost one of its most famous people. Voice and no-nonsense attitude had become a word that means justice and honesty. He was only 62 years old when he had a heart attack, took his life, a tragedy that many thought that his long fight sped up his death. With a lot of smoking, for people who looked up to him, his death felt like the end of a time, a last, fading out for the man who had provided the Dragnet around the world and set the tone for the American detective who was dedicated. Jack was buried at Forest Lawn. Memorial Park is in Hollywood Hills in the Sheltering Hills portion, a calm location to rest with a view of the city he cherished and remembered via his art. His funeral was a sad event that many people went to, by police officers from Los Angeles department who respected him as one of their own. In a rare and moving, in honor of the LAPD, they retired badge number 714, the same number that Webb's famous other name, Sergeant Joe Friday. The city itself even mourned. Banners, half-staff flags flew all over Los Angeles, noting the death of a man whose legacy blurred the boundary between fiction and real life. Even though decades have gone by, Webb's, the effect lasts. He had a lot of regard for law enforcement, and his groundbreaking. He made money by working in radio and TV. 2 stars on the Walk of Fame in Hollywood. 1 for each medium that carried his. Sound and sight. His name will live on forever in 1992, in the Hall of Fame for TV, making sure that Jack Webb, the quiet craftsman, behind Dragnet, would never really go away from memory.